I'm going to work on the front line of the body today, more so from the waist up. It does connect to the quads and the fronts of the lower legs to that whole chain. So I actually want to begin tonight sitting on our knees. And if you'd like, you could put a block, but just pause for a second, because we're going to do some breath work. So I'm going to use, for beginning, this Coregeous ball to twist across, but any ball will do. I might even go from the Coregeous ball to the regular therapy ball. And we're going to get through the front of the neck. We'll do a little test and retest and sort of think about the throat part of the breathing, kind of that sense of where the breath enters. And then we're going to move down we'll move down onto our backs, get into the base of our head, where more of that nervous system regulation for the breath is, the cranial sacral system, which has a direct input to the vagus nerve, which is the main parasympathetic nerve. And it's through our breath that we have direct contact to creating that shift into parasympathetic. So we'll work down from the base of the head to the side of the neck a little bit, and then into the front of the chest. So also have a block available for that. Come down onto the floor. I want to do a little bit of kind of back bending options. So I just have a couple things. I have a blanket rolled up because I feel like the blanket is nicer than, say, the foam roller, although the foam roller is an option too, and as is the Coregeous ball, but we'll be back bending over and then getting into this sternum area. So that's kind of tentatively the plan. So go ahead and grab what you need and then make yourself comfortable. And if you'd like, you can sit kneeling on a block. And if you don't want to sit kneeling on the block, if you feel quite open, you could even roll the calves out and come into more of that W type sitting. And if you feel like in that W sit you need just a little prop, you could take the blanket under your pelvis just for a little block. And then so in whatever way you want to start kneeling, welcome. We're going to begin kneeling. You can find that sensational but sustainable point. If you find yourself efforting to stay there, you might need a little bit more support under the pelvis. And so feel how the tops of the feet are open. If you look at your feet, try to get the entire top of the foot on the floor. So pinky toe touches all the way to big toe. And just notice how your feet land. And then maybe get that rolling out of the shins if that feels right, so that the front of the shins really rests on the floor. And then settle into your knees. And if kneeling is particularly uncomfortable, you could put the blanket underneath the knees so that you actually create a little more space in the knees. And so now let's just do a little assessment, do a little intake in a way. Tip the head back and just notice where you feel it pulling across the front of the throat, across the front of the chest. Maybe even take a glance and see where you can see until on the wall behind you. And then return. And like I said, I'm going to start with this large Coregeous ball. Then I might get into this smaller ball a little bit. So I'm going to take this nice big ball, and any ball will do, but you want to be soft with the pressure. And I'm just going to take up the tension in the superficial or those surface level fibers. And then I'm going to move along the front of the neck, spiraling the ball. If you have a smaller ball or dense ball instead of this soft ball, just don't go right over the throat. So if you have the smaller ball, you might go along the line of the chin. And we're just doing nice, gentle, rotational motions, taking up the slack in all directions. And the head may rotate a little bit to accommodate the ball. Just let the eyes close. Think about turning the gaze inward. So if you visualize the eyes in the eye sockets, generally we're out scanning the environment. So as we look at this line here, we're looking at like preparedness or that readiness or being on edge. Sometimes it's even that of being in shock that we hold in the system. And we're scanning the environment with our eyes for safety during this, if this is stimulated. And then once you get to the other side, reverse the turn of the ball and work your way back across the neck. So I want you to think about softening the eyes in the eye sockets. See if you can almost let the eyes drift backward in the socket. And what would it be like to just visualize internally if that gaze was turned inward instead of outward? Working the ball back over to where you started. And then releasing the ball. And just see what happens. Tuck the chin down. Notice if that chin really tucks into the chest now. And then bring the chin up. And notice if it feels a little different. And then with the chin up, maybe walk the hands back behind you so that you can really let go of the head, and you'll even feel a little bit more opening through the front line of the body. And then while you're here, I'm going to actually integrate a little sound just so that we really get some vibration into the front of the neck, in front of the throat. Bring the tongue to the top of the mouth, so to the palate of the mouth. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do a little buzzing with our voice, and it's going to be like an internal om. So tongue towards the top of the mouth, lips close, but you're going to hum like you're doing an om in a closed mouth. It's going to be like this. And then maybe change the tone, maybe make it a little higher so that you feel the vibration in the head. If you increase the key or increase the note, make it higher, it's going to be more superior, more towards the head and the body. So try that 2 more times. And then walk yourself back up. Maybe scoot the feet off to the side and just allow the sensation to return into the legs as you come onto your back. If you did use the small ball, take the ball back into your tote, and I want to come right into the base of the head now. So we're going to play with the same region of the body. I'm going to have you put your standard size set of therapy balls onto a block or a blanket or a pillow so they're slightly elevated, because they're going to create a platform for the base of the head to rest on. And you're going to feel the chin tuck downward now. So we just worked on the lower part of the cervical spine in the front. Now we're working on the upper part of the cervical spine in the back, so that you're getting a little gapping where the head and the neck meet. And you might even do a couple nods to nestle the balls into the just right spot. And then we're going to use the eyes again. Like I said, I wanted you to create an internal gaze. We're actually going to activate the eyes so that after the activation comes a relaxation. And it will also create a relaxation in the back of the head. So, taking both eyes, look up and to the left, like you're trying to look into the left corner of the eye, and with both eyes, really feel the eyes work. You'll feel it almost like a slight burning sensation in the forehead and in the, like, deep inside the forehead and around the eyes. Hold it for 4, 3, 2, 1, and release. And then we'll do that 2 more times to the left. Look up and to the left. Hold it. We have to hold about 7 to 10 seconds to get the neuromuscular system. And release. Soften the eyes in between. See if you notice that size, a change in the nervous system, as well as in the myofascial system. And you might already notice a difference between the left and right. Doing it one more time, look up and to the left. And release. Now let's do the other direction. So look up and right. Hold. 7, 6, 5, 4. Activate the eyes. One more second and gently release, feeling the eyes soften in the eye sockets. And then we'll do 2 more rounds, actively looking the whole time up and to the right. Both eyes are going to the top right corner of the eye, feeling this deep muscle activation in the eyes. Like I was talking about pitch before, you can even feel my pitch go up as we're working on the eyes, as my voice even resonates with the sound at the tone of my head. I'm like, I'm being squeaky. For 3, 2, 1, and release. Soften the eyes in between. And then one more round. Look up and right. Hold. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then soften the eyes. Even close the eyes. And then do a couple pelvic tilts. Tipping the pelvis downward like you're tipping the hips towards the heels. And notice how that creates a little pull or a little chug all the way at the base of the head, creating this little traction. traction. And you may have to adjust a little bit to find that just right spot where you get the balls to dig right in to that space where the head and the top of the neck meet. And then let the legs relax, let the arm relax. Let's pause here for a couple of moments, just feeling the body be completely heavy. Let go of the body completely, allowing the calves to be heavy, thighs to be heavy, hips heavy, pelvis heavy, low back heavy and relaxed, rib cage heavy, shoulder blades, shoulders, arms and hands all heavy. And then head resting heavy on the therapy balls. Let go of any efforting as we come into this positional release, which is a reset for the nervous system. And with the body being completely relaxed, you can start to shift your awareness to the breath. Without forcing or changing the breath, just bring your awareness there like a feather floating towards the earth. The awareness gently rests on the breath. And I want you to start to notice the 4 phases of breathing. Inhalation, retention of the breath, exhalation, and then suspension of the breath. So the 4 phases of the breath. So inhalation, feeling what it's like to be full. Exhalation, feeling the emptiness, pausing and waiting for the next exhale to spontaneously arise. And on the next exhalation, see if you can start to extend the length of the exhale. Pausing for a beat or two at the bottom of the exhale. And then waiting for the breath to come on its own, not forcing or straining. Just consciously bringing awareness to extending the exhale. Taking one more round here. And then bend your knees and turning to your side. So same balls, same position. And now I'm having you keep both the therapy balls there. I tend to use one ball, but I find that a lot of people will guard with a lot of this work. You can always go to a larger or softer ball too. So the back of the head is almost kind of, you're turned up just a little bit, and the back of the head is kind of resting on the back ball. And then as you turn to your side, I want you to feel the front ball bump up against the side of the skull right at the mastoid process. So behind the ear, there's this large bony protuberance. that sticks out behind the ear. And I want you to get the therapy ball right up against that spot. And what you're going to do is you're going to rotate the head down, turning the chin down, feeling the pressure go into the front therapy ball, looking at the sternocleidomastoid, and then you can roll off. And then let's do that a few times. And roll off. Staying in this bulky muscle right at the side of the neck that runs like a V, called your sternocleidomastoid, staying out of the throat. So make sure that your pressure keeping the head really heavy, not holding the head up, but letting the head roll over the ball. One more time, roll forward, bringing the weight of your head onto the ball. And then once you're in that thick, meaty muscle, right, that connects right behind the ear, maybe you can strip or lengthen the top of that muscle by nodding the chin. So you're way behind the throat, you're in musculature, and you'll feel as the chin nods, a little stretching under the ball. You may even go into a little extension. And I want you to feel how you're sliding and gliding the fibers right under the therapy ball. And then find stillness. We're going to stay on the same side, but we're going to come to a different muscle, and then we'll start over again. We're going to rotate from our side here towards our hands and knees, and we're going to stay with this same kind of configuration, but maybe turn the therapy balls to be vertically, so one is pointing towards you and one's pointing away. And what we're going to do is we're going to bring the chest just under the collarbone to the therapy ball. I'm coming to the bottom therapy ball. If you want to take it out of the tote, if you feel like the top one is getting in the way, you can. And I'm going to come right under the collarbone. And I'm going to find that because the balls are still in the tote, I can actually get just this little bit of roll. And you might change the arm position, bring the arm down or out like a T. Sorry, I feel like my mic is going. So rolling right on the bottom surface of the clavicle as it rests on the block. And then you'll notice probably several tender points. This is a very tender area. So this part of our breathing, this clavicular breathing, is associated with the stress reaction. So that and holding of the breath, or anxiety. So notice if you can come back to that breathing that we did, elongating the exhalation, pausing at the ends of the exhalation for a breath or two, or for a beat or two, and then waiting for the body to breathe in itself. And then work your way out along the clavicle, finding 3 or 4 spots of tenderness that you can lean into and sustain pressure on. If the 2 balls is challenging, you can take 1 ball out of the tote. You can even change the height of your block if necessary. But I want the head to be down, staying in this kind of inverted type position, assisting the exhalation. And then find 1 more spot. Just breathing into where the ball and body meet. Waiting for a sigh of release. And then coming up, just from this posture, sitting back on your heels, doing that initial test that we did, tipping the head back and noticing the difference now between the left and the right. For the other side. So coming to your side, therapy ball still placed on the block. Allow the front of the therapy balls to bump up against the meaty muscle that right behind the ear at that rounded bony process right at the side of the skull. And so to start, my head's rotated back just a little bit. So my occiput's kind of resting on the back ball. And then I'm just doing that for comfort because this can be really tender. So if you have a larger surface area of contact, it'll be less reactive. But now what we're going to do is we're actually going to come off the back ball, rotating the chin down as you come into the sternocleidomastoid muscle. And then if it feels right, keep the pressure on that muscular cord just behind the ear. It should feel like a little muscular wall preventing you from going into the throat. And if it feels right, you can nod. And stillness is always an option. Sometimes less is more. If you find that you're holding your head up in any way, just find stillness. Drop the head. Taking 3 more breaths in whatever way feels right for you. Listening to the body, let your body be your guide. And then I'm going to rotate towards hands and knees. And now I'm just going to quarter turn my therapy balls. And I'm going to use the one that's closer to me. And I'm going to bring the space right underneath the collarbone to that therapy ball. I'm coming under the collarbone and outside of the sternum into the clavicular region or subclavius muscle. And you might actually even be able to roll along the bottom of the clavicle with the ball toted like this. And you might find a few spots as you sweep along the inferior border of the clavicle. And then pausing and find stillness. Breathe right into where the ball and body meet, and then elongate that exhale just as we did on the back. As those spots, they're actually lung meridian spots and anxiety points. As those spots soften, move outward towards the shoulder, finding another one. Just meeting with the just right bit of pressure, not pushing or trying to make it go away, just welcoming the sensation and breathing into it. Using the breath as the driver here. Waiting for that big sigh of release. And then staying right here, I want you to actually rotate the block now. So now the block is vertical like a runway. And I want you to come right onto the sternum. Let the forehead come to the floor. Let the arms come up overhead. So now you're in this puppy pose position. So this nice yin shape. But I want you to feel the therapy balls, and you're just going to on each side of the sternum, so below the clavicle on each side of the sternum. And I want you to feel yourself drop into the therapy balls. You may do a little forward or back weight shift, like a little chugging action to find the just right spot. And what you're going to do is you're going to end up landing in the spaces between the upper ribs. And see if you can feel the movement of the breath right into the spaces where the ribs and sternum meet. Letting the forehead rest on the floor. Once you feel the spot you're on soften, maybe move the therapy balls down a segment. Finding that just right spot. If this is too much that you find yourself guarding, you can just take the balls out and use the block. Or you could also use the Coregeous ball here, that soft air-filled ball. Some people, not even everyone, has a muscle running along the sides of the sternum, actually called the sternalis muscle. But it's not universal. And so going right along that right now. Find maybe one or two more spots, elongating that exhale so that we literally elongate
the sternum. We elongate the space from the back of the ear where we began all the way to the bottom of the sternum. Notice if you're holding the body up. See if you can surrender to gravity. And again, you're in control of how much weight, how much pressure you place into where the ball and the body meet. And if the balls themselves are too tender that they cause a bracing, remove the balls and just use the block. And then when you feel ready, taking as much time as you need, absolutely no rush. We're going to move towards Sphinx. So we're going to actually move towards our belly, propped up on our forearms. But I just had a thought since we began in kneeling. If you do, no worry if you don't, but if you do have a wall nearby, you might decide to take this kind of restorative version of a bow or a Dhanurasana shape so that we get those quads again to work that entire line. So it might feel nice to do this if it's accessible with a couch, a chair, a wall, placing the thighs up. Then pressing your palms, pressing your forearms into the floor. Pull the elbows back just a tiny bit so that you pull the chest forward, trying to elongate this whole frontal chain. Be careful not to make that a back bend so that you hinge from the low back, but keep the lower ribs on the floor and feel if you can feel the chest bone pull forward through the shoulders and sends the breath right to the space between the shoulders, spreading the collarbones, spreading the clavicles. And then keep a gentle tuck of the upper cervical spine that we worked so hard on so that the gaze, so even though the neck, the chest is pulling forward, the neck is still long. So not losing the length in the back of the upper neck. So think about keeping a downward gaze just past the fingertips. You may even keep the eyes open, but play with the idea again of what is it like if I create this internal gaze, if the eyes are looking, scanning inward so that the periphery becomes a little bit hazy or fuzzy. And the focus is turned inside upon yourself. And then come back to your breath. I really want you to notice and feel the length on each side of the sternum, the movement in the sternocostal joints, where the ribs and sternum or chest bone meet. And then let the head come down. Head could turn to one side. Arms might even come by your sides. If the legs feel fine where they are, you can allow them to stay there. See if you can let the shoulders round now. Really feeling the chest and the sternum rest heavy on the floor. Feeling the shoulder blades pull apart from one another as the sternum rests towards the floor. Feel how the floor prevents the breath going forward. And the breath actually now springs up to the space between the shoulder blades. And now let's move down a little bit along that line. So you can either take your blanket to the bottom of the ribs to spring up, kind of hold up the bottom of the ribs, or take your Coregeous ball, if you have one, right to that space like that V of the low of the ribs. And now the arms are going to come out more towards a tripod type position. And I want to come into the legs could stay. And if you're feeling any compression in the low back, just take them down. And now I want the pressure of the ball to explore where the rectus abdominis, or the abs, meet that sternal area. So now we're in this area of the solar plexus, and there may even be a little flowing side to side motion, or a little kind of rolling over the ball if it feels good. First, using a little fluidity to kind of meet the resistance of whatever you have under you, whether it could be a block, but that's really hard. Block, blanket, or Coregeous ball. And then just take a few really deep breaths. Breathing right to where the ball and body meet. Using your breath to be the mobilization. Feeling how the body rises and falls like it's bobbing on water. Seeing if you can breathe along the front of the spine now. I want you to feel if on the inhale, you can feel the breath move up the front border of the spine. So between the spine and the organs, see if you can feel this smooth elevator up of the breath on the front side of the spine. And then the exhale, that elevator descends back down to the pelvis. Take a few more breaths there so that as the breath ascends up the front border of the spine, there's this sense of fluid, smooth inhale, like an elevator ascending. Just noticing if there's any place along that line where the breath gets stuck. Take one more round of breath. And then remove the ball or remove the blanket and come all the way back to your belly. And now feel the breath fill the space in the lower rib cage
letting the head fall to the opposite side. Now feeling the breath expand like an accordion action in the lower ribs. Feeling how the front body rests on the earth now. And then now press up to the hands again. So come towards that little seal, but as a transition. And now take the right arm, thread the right arm under the left, like you're coming towards thread the needle. And now you're going to actually come to a spinal twist in this direction. So bring the right foot towards the floor. Oops, I'm hitting something. And then now let the left foot come back, kind of like a kickstand, and then the right arm comes back onto the floor as well. So I want you to feel that bend still in the bottom knee and the right knee, and then a pressing out through the left leg so that you're in this length on the left side. So arms reaching out like a T, stretching through the front chain of the body, a little bit of an extension action, like the front body's in a bow or a bridge type position. We're getting a bridge on the left with a little bit of a twist, spinal twist. Continue pressing through the left foot so that that back body activation on the left actually assists with the elongation on the front. And as you pause here, you may notice how the shoulder blades start to drop a little bit more into the floor. Head can go whichever way is comfortable. You may even rock side to side a little bit. Continue lengthening out the back of the neck. Just notice what you feel. Note if there's any efforting, striving. See if you can let the body sigh into this posture a little bit more, waiting for signs of the body to release. Change in breath, a flushing, warmth, change in heart rate or respiration. And then rolling back to your belly. If you're against the wall, feet can come back up towards the wall. Press down through the left to uncross the right, coming directly to the other side. threading the left arm underneath the right arm. You're up against the wall. If you're up against the wall, the left foot comes to the floor. Left knee stays bent to get a little bit of that quad opening in that front body line. Right foot comes to the floor. Right arm and shoulder blade come to the floor. You're in a little bridge on the right side, activating the right glute, pushing through the right foot, creating a bowing action or this half bridge action. Elongating the front chain of the body. Think about the opening through the chest and the front of the hip, but tuck the chin slightly to elongate the neck, both front and back of the neck. And as the body surrenders into the shape, notice the heaviness through both shoulder blades. And then as the body surrenders and as you release, roll right onto your back to come out of this. And then just come to your back for a moment, coming back to your mat, finding just a momentary rest on your mat. And then we'll move into our final two shapes. We'll move into a supported version of bridge and a supported version of fish. And this is where I said a block, a foam roller, a blanket may even feel good. There's no right version. But I want to initially come, or even the gorgeous ball is good. I want to initially come to a supported bridge posture. We'll take the pelvis up on your block, on a foam, on a rolled up blanket. And we'll come back to that inverted position to help and assist the elongation of the exhalation and that shifting into parasympathetic system. So lift the hips onto foam, block, blanket, gorgeous ball, whatever feels good. Keep that open motion of the chest, maybe a T or even a field goal shape, or even arms come up overhead, like in that puppy posture, if that feels good, as long as you can maintain the length and the base of the head. And then stay here, or if it feels good, elongate the legs out, getting the opening in the front of the hips as well. Let the body completely surrender. And then draw your awareness back to the breath. Find the 4 phases of breath again, just following the breath now as it moves in and out of the body. Feeling the inhalation, the retention of the breath at the top of the inhale, the
exhalation, and the suspension of the breath at the end of the exhale. Following each phase. And then on the next exhalation, if you feel like you can, gently extend the exhalation and the suspension for a beat or count or two each. Without striving or straining, gently extend the exhale. Taking one more round of breath. And then bending your knees, replacing the hips to the earth, removing the prop, and then just observing the change. Letting the body return to neutral in position and breathing, resting into stillness in the body and mind, feeling the resetting before you move to your final variation, which you could use the foam. This is where I was I was really thinking about using the blanket, but I want to create a horizontal, and the block could work to a horizontal support across the back of the shoulder blade so that you're in this little extension. I might try my foam since I have a softer one. And if you find that it's too much on the head, in that neck, you could take your blanket or block and prop the head up. So finding a version of a supported fish with the legs out straight today, I'm going to suggest. And just this open heart position, open chest, and then open clavicle and throat position, really emphasizing this openness from the chin to the clavicles along the sternum, and letting the arms come out wide like a T. Find a sensational but sustainable position that you can explore and be curious about. And pause and stay for about the next 3 minutes, feeling how the sensation shifts and changes, how the body softens, how the breath deepens. Making sure that you can stay with long, even breaths. If at any time the breath becomes short, or you find a focus on the inhale come in, give yourself more support. So it's really important not to create a reaction here, but to be able to skillfully respond by positioning yourself to feel supported so that you can ease in a little deeper. Feeling the exhale elongate. And notice if you can focus your awareness again on the breath in the front aspect of the spine. So feel the breath flow like an elevator up the front wall of the spine and then down the front wall of the spine in that space between the internal organs and the spine.
Noticing if with time, if the edge of the pose changes, you may change your head position, change the support, but do so slowly and skillfully, only in a way that is supportive, without causing any bracing or guarding, any efforting, keeping the breath long, elongating the exhale, feeling supported, safe, and at ease. Waiting for a sigh of release. Taking about 5 more breaths wherever you are. Then to come out, bending one knee, and the side that you bend, push through that foot and roll to the opposite side. And then the top hand comes to the floor, removing any props so that you can end up all the way on your back. Finding your final resting pose. Arriving, allowing the feet to be heavy, warm and at ease. Calves, left calf, right calf. Both calves heavy and supported. Left thigh, right thigh, both thighs. Sensing the left hip heavy in the hip socket. Right hip heavy in the right socket. Both hips, legs, and feet heavy and supported, relaxed and at ease. Sense the front of the torso, the back of the torso, the whole torso dropping into the floor, easing into support. left arm, right arm, both arms heavy, supported, at ease. Sensing the head, the face, the jaw, sensing the eyes drop back inside the eye sockets, brain dropping back inside the skull. Letting go into heaviness and support. Then letting the body breathe itself. Nothing to do, nothing to change. Body breathing just for you. And then beginning to cultivate a sense of gratitude at the heart space. Gratitude for the lungs filling, heart beating, body sustaining itself. Sensing gratitude move through the trunk into the legs, out into the arms. Feel that sensation awaken and alive in the body, bringing back movement. And bringing you to your side. And after all that expansion, finding yourself in the fetal position, wrapped up in a tiny ball, giving yourself an embrace. Thankful for your body and for the practice. And then pressing into the floor for external support. Rising back up to sitting. Taking a full breath in. Feeling the breath move through the body. Exhaling with a sigh. Breathing in one more time, feeling the movement, the spaciousness, and the potential of the breath. And then letting it all go. Bowing forward into yourself. Thank you for joining. Namaste.